Good evening, everybody, and welcome to today's special broadcast. We're taking a look at the Weardale and Teesdale Railway Network. I'm joined by Derek Siddle.
Hello.
Tell us what you do, Derek.
I am head of content here at Dovetail Games. I am responsible for delivering and producing the content that the team create and that we release weekly.
Superb. So this route's been a bit of a pet project for you, Derek. It's been a bit of a journey, hasn't it, getting this one out?
It's been a very long journey, yes.
So I guess before we get on to the route, it might be a good idea to what's your background, Derek? What in terms of how long have you been working with Train Simulator, and tell us about Derek?
So I've been with the software since 2006 when I joined Kuju. It was called Rail Simulator then. Once that was released in 2007, I joined RSDL, or the RSDL was formed out of the ashes of that team. There were 7 of us. We were at RSDL for 2 years, and then from RSDL, RS.com got made, and then we turned into Dovetail Games. So I've been with this software 9 years now.
Fantastic. And what sorts of things have you done with the software, and have you always been head of content?
So I started off as lead artist to begin with, then studio head, as there was only 7 of us, so a grand title for a very small team. Once we started to grow, it became clear that focus needed to be on development, so I headed up 1 or 2 teams, and from that, as the teams grew and Dovetail or railsimulator.com grew, I focused on the train simulation development, and so now there's a team of 25 to 30 people, wow, all delivering content for Dovetail, but under my guidance. Yes,
that's superb. And you've got a bit of history making routes as well, because I think you've led the charge on a number of the route projects.
So the very first route that I could probably kicked off was the Isle of Wight, which I think many of our users probably own and enjoyed. But that really set the benchmark for what we wanted to produce after the initial 5 or 6 routes that we made for Rail Simulator. We were still learning right then. I mean, even the tools weren't finalised at that point. But we wanted to set a benchmark that would hold up for a number of years, that we could try and better, but at least we wouldn't be ashamed of what we made. So we spent a good 6-7 months creating the Isle of Wight, and even though it was only 20 miles, I think it was still. I think it still holds up quite well today. So a testament to the guys who worked on it.
Absolutely, yeah.
So yes, there was other routes that I've worked. Yeah, Mariah's Pass, Woodhead, I think was a labour of love too, and Sherman Hill and a few others. But essentially, I let the more talented people create the routes, and I kind of steer them in the right direction.
That's brilliant. I think you've been working on the Weardale route for how many years have you been working on that one? Using the word working perhaps loosely.
Almost as long as I've been with the software. So the very first asset I made was 2006, maybe early 2007, when we were testing the tools, the early development tools. So I made something that was important to me, just in my own time, so I could test what the user's experience would be, as opposed to what the development, because we had development tools in house, and it was quite often we would have a different results of what happened in house to what happened with the live software. So I started creating the signal box, the e-signal box at Bishop Auckland, just because it was an image from my childhood. So the route didn't start then, but essentially the cogs were turning of maybe I could do something in my spare time with the software.
So this really it's a route that's sort of been bubbling away, simmering away for quite a long time, hasn't it, really?
I guess 7 to 8 years.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it's
2008 is when it began in earnest.
Wow, that's still a long time. Okay, so let's just have a quick look. This is the overview of the Weardale Teesdale network, and as you can see, network really is the right word for it. What are some of the key locations on this network?
So as you can see, the Bishop Auckland's in the centre of the hub, and then like a wheel, I guess what you've got is got Durham in the north, Darlington in the south, and then Barnard Castle, and I guess way ahead with and the scenic line up to Middle and Teesdale. But it all focused around Bishop Auckland, and because Darlington meant so much to me too, that it was key that the track headed down to Darlington.
Fantastic. Okay, so Derek's put together some fantastic photographs which sort of outline the real location and some of the history and really the inspiration behind why the route was created and what was really important to Derek. So I thought we'd start on this photograph that of Derek's. So maybe you can tell us a bit about what's important here.
Well, this is the one image that actually started the whole thing. So that is the signal box that I started modelling to begin with. But that image is just taken from the bridge that goes over the track at Cockton Hill and Newgate Street merge there. So as a young child sitting on my father's shoulders, I used to look over that bridge and watch the trains go through the station. It didn't quite look as grand as that, and we'll get to that in a second, but over the years, that's the one image that I've aspired to create. And I think, we talk about making a route, but I never really intended to make a route at all. It was all about trying to recreate this area and the station in its grandest form.
Okay, so let's move on. So this one looks a little bit less grand.
So yes, this is from, I think, 1982. And this is probably, as a child, how I remember it. You can see that the footbridge is gone and the clock tower is also gone and the canopies have all gone. But it was still in workable use. Platform 3 there, where the 105 was the main platform used, and platform 1 in the shed off to the left was no longer used. But again, the signal box being front and centre, it's a shame that you could see that it was mothballed. Yes. And you can, I guess, the next image, if you just click over, you could see that the main building had gone, so all you were left with is empty platforms. There's an institute building that was behind that. The approach road is still there, but you can see the two double doors in the centre of the image. As a child, I remember walking down those. There's a walkway that went down to platform 1. And it's sad to see it in that state, and I couldn't believe that something would, in such a short space of time. I think that's 1984, so in 2 years it was just all taken apart.
So then next
and
one.
So then here we are in, I think this is 87, it might be 88. It's there or thereabouts. So it had all gone. I think the platform 3 building is still there off to the right, but you can see that what's there now on platform 1, we were left with a little shelter with a little thin platform, and it's quite sad. But again, just take it to the next one. So this is what we've got. It's a little bit different. I guess it looks a little bit, more depressing than it really is. But if that's what's there now, you've got the overriding view of B&Q. Morrison's is just off to the right, and there's a trust, I think, with the station right now where they're making a much greater effort to tidy this up a little bit, but it's still a far cry from what was there in the 50 years previous.
Fantastic. Yeah, really. As you can see the decline of that. Okay, so that's sort of the key area for you. And I know when we've been talking about it previously, you've said that this route didn't really start out to be what it ended up being, did it?
No, not at all. It was all about recreating the Bishop Auckland Triangle, which the station as it was quite, I wouldn't say it was unique because there was 2 or 3 of them around in the country, but essentially it was in a triangle so that steam trains wouldn't have to go to a turntable and turn around. They would just run them around the 3 platforms and it would be facing the correct way again. So I really just wanted to recreate that. So we laid some track and we had around the station. Oh, that's pretty good. But it'd be quite nice to at least run some trains through the station and then have them end at portals. So if you click to the next one, you can see that this is about a 5-mile area of, Shildon, which, all these places mean something to me, I guess. So Shildon is where a lot of my dad's side of the family are. West Auckland is where my dad and my granddad lived. Camden is where, near where my best friend lived. Bishop Auckland, obviously, and Netherley is where my mum's parents are from. So, it was quite nice to be, okay, I will make the town. I will make the surrounding villages and I'll make the town with the station in the centre. And that was my aim. I thought, that'll be it, no more.
So, what went wrong?
Well, as you can see, then suddenly Adam Lucas, who was working with me, said, "Oh, it would be quite nice to be able to run, one of the trains somewhere." So then I had to think about, where do I really want the train to go? So the River Weir was I used to go fishing with my dad, so we used to go up to a place called Burnhope Reservoir, which is just off to the just up in the Dales by Weir Head, and my dad used to fish the river up towards Whitley Weir. So, okay, the track follows the river all the way up there. So I thought, well, that could be quite interesting. And the freight train still ran through there up until the 93, I think it was. So I thought, yeah, I could recreate that. So Adam laid the track for me for free. And then, okay, that's it, no more. 23 miles up to Weir Head, surrounding towns, that'll be it.
So when you said no more, what did you really mean?
So I kind of then went, well, Bishop Auckland isn't the end point, so where would you take it to? So, Darlington being obviously the main station in the area. I was a bit of a Darlington football fan, and it was where we used to get the train from Bishop Auckland to Darlington as kids and go to the cinema. So yes, I thought, take it to Darlington. That's 32 miles worth of track we've got laid down there now.
So
it's just gone off screen.
That's better.
There we go. So we laid a little bit to Crook. I thought, that'd be, just put some spurs on. Took the track round to Spennymoor, because all these lines, most of them are country walks now. So took it round to Spennymoor, up to Hunwick, over the viaduct, and Crook, because it was a good end point to the track. So that was quite nice.
Gradually, these legs are all extending out a little bit.
Yeah, that's right. But
Okay.
there was only a few mile in there. That was fine.
So then, Barnard Castle happened.
So then, what happened was people. I started working with a guy called Robert Payne, and we worked together on Woodheads. And he was aware of my route, and he said, "Well, maybe we could lay a bit more track." And he's obsessed with laying track, so you can't contain him. So he goes, "Okay, well let's take it to Barnard Castle." Okay, that'd be quite good, because it would go up through West Auckland, it would go through to Evenwood, and then obviously up to Barnard Castle, which is quite a nice part of the world. Again, the trains went through from Bishop Auckland to Barnard Castle, so it made absolute sense. So
I think the next link seems obvious.
So, well, obviously, because the main trains went from Darlington to Barnard Castle and across to Penrith, so it made sense to obviously join it up and have a little bit of a,
as you do, and
circular.
Carried on.
We didn't really mean to do this. This was a 10 mile up to Weardale and Teesdale. It was It just went in. He did that without really consulting with me. I'm blaming him for this totally. This was not my call. He just, in fact, he wanted to go further, but I tried to rein him in.
And then finally,
so Durham was his call. It was, well, we can't end it here. We need to take it somewhere else. And obviously, some of the thought was taking it to Saltburn, or maybe from Darlington down to Richmond, or even from to Middlesbrough, but taking it to Durham, so at least there was a good north to south journey. That Durham to Darlington, obviously on the East Coast Main Line, was obviously very popular, but on engineering works, whenever there was engineering works on the line, on the East Coast Main Line, a lot of the trains used to get routed through Bishop Auckland, so we did have the F4s go through, the Deltics, a lot of the Pacifics did go through Bishop Auckland, so it wasn't inconceivable that you would see some very big trains going through the station and across the viaduct towards Durham. So
it really sounds like an amazing place to grow up train spotting.
Well, it would have been, but unfortunately, from my point of view, I was born in '72, so at this point, most of the lines had been closed down. So
Right.
you really only had that core route when you take it back to, say, Eastgate, Stanhope, down through towards Darlington. That would have been the only thing left as a child. So my overriding memories would have been of the 37s and the 101s going through Bishop Auckland.
So what sort of time period is the route set in?
Well, again, I wanted BR Blue, but of course BR Blue's setting was way too late for any of this network. But it's more my overriding memory of the trains I used to see as a child. So I thought, well, how far back? I don't remember Steam now, but I've got a Steam network. So BR Green seemed to make perfect sense. So We Ahead closed in 53, and most of it was all gone by 68. So it's roughly between 50 and 65. Okay. I think that's a good time period.
And BR Green, as we shall be seeing shortly.
BR Green, because, and we'll get to this in a second, there was a number of diesels that as a child I remembered, and those are the ones I wanted to recreate.
Okay, so we'll come to that shortly. Okay, so you've got some more images that you've given us. Can you talk us through some of these images?
So when I realised that I was actually going to do this, so we laid the track up to We Ahead, I researched the whole line. I drove up one weekend, and over a long weekend I walked the line. It's 23 mile. I walked the bits I could and drove the bits in between. So here we are, St John's Chapel. I think we're at one of the bridges overlooking. You can see the line where it would have been going down south. Obviously sheep everywhere, but you can still see that it's a beautiful part of the world. That it's like 7 o'clock in the morning when I started, and I finished at 9 o'clock in the evening in the dark at Bishop Auckland. But if you click to the next one, there's Stanhope Station that's still in use. It's quite a nice station there. They run specials from Stanhope down to Walsingham still to this day, I think. And there's the bridge looking across the Weir. The railway crosses the Weir quite a lot. I think there's 6 or 7 bridges across, and the railway runs alongside the river all the way. Mm-hmm. Here we are just outside of Walsingham. It's a bridge on a slope at an angle. So it was kind of some of the challenges that we have recreating these worlds is the number of different assets that we have to create. As you know, we have standard bridges. We have bridges that we can distort, but when you get bridges that are distorted and very bespoke, the asset count for this route is huge. So I took photographs of everything I thought I would need. Thousands of photographs. So here we are at Witten Park Viaduct. You can see it's quite unique. It's got a road bridge that goes through one of the arches at an angle. And the next shot, I think, is me on top of it. A little bit worrying that they still cross this bridge, actually. You can see the... it's a little bit wobbly going across, but they still run freight trains across there today, so it must be stable. And here we are, we on the other side of Bishop Auckland now, heading towards this is a bridge at Eldon, just going towards Shildon Tunnel, as you can see there. So these photographs were taken when there was very little traffic on the route. I'm just pop my head across the fence, and in the route, this is one of the locations I was keen to recreate. It's strong memories from my childhood where we used to play. Just off to the right here, there's old hills where we used to ride our bikes up and down the sort of I don't know what they were, sort of like old slag heaps. I guess that's what they were.
Yeah. It's quite an imposing tunnel.
Yeah, it was. So that's it was created 1843. I think that's the date when that came through, because it didn't go all the way to Bishop Auckland to begin with. It stopped at South Church, and then they had real trouble crossing the Gauntless. There's a huge embankment that you'll see when you drive your scenario. That the reason why it stopped there was because they just couldn't traverse the huge gap.
Okay, so that's your research trip.
Well, that's one of them, yes.
One of the many.
Research trips.
So let's have a look at some of the included stock and why.
So the 101, obviously, as a child driver, we rode in these, and it was clear that I was never going to be able to make the route at a speed I wanted to. So how could I move these things along? How could I actually generate or create the things I wanted to create in a manageable time frame? So the 101 was the last in the series that I made, but it was the passenger service. So what I wanted to do is a shunter, a freight train and a passenger train. And I picked the three that I've got the strongest memories of. The 101 is obviously but I don't remember in BI green. It was all BI blue with a full yellow front. But it was the 08 Shunter, which was where I learned. It was the first train that I modelled in 2007, and the first bit of DLC that we released for Rail Simulator. But as a child, I used to see this thing. It had a funny old noise to it which I'd never really. What on earth's that? And because it had the stripes on, which was different. As a child, it had a profound effect on me where it just. I'd not seen anything like it, and when I got into Rail Simulator, I was keen, a little bit like the station. I was keen to recreate this train more than the others. And next up, the 37, which is I think my favourite train to drive. It is obviously it's an older model. It's now 2009 is when I modelled this, or 2008 I think actually. But it is a growling, grunting sort of machine, which is it's just great. And I've got memories of it pulling PCA wagons, V dip, I don't know what you call them, but the V PCA wagons. And that used to, when I used to stand on that bridge, that was the train that used to come down from Eastgate, from the cement works. And that's the bit that used to hear the whole town. You would hear the train from a few miles away, but go through the town and you would hear it disappear as well. So as a child, we would sit there and watch those trains come in and out.
Yes, and of course those three trains, they've been available previously, and they were originally modelled because you were interested in this route, weren't they?
Well, yeah, I didn't tell them that at the time. It's I had this plan, which I thought, if I don't tell anybody, maybe it might come true, it might happen. But I worked my way slowly through the rolling stock, and then give them no reason not to help with the route, not realising that it would take so many years.
Well, yeah. But there is another piece of rolling stock in the pack, isn't there? So tell us a bit about the 25.
So the 25. Again, I don't have strong memories of the 25 because by the time they'd moved, I was keen that when we did this route, that because the 101 and the 37 and the 08 have been out for such a long time, I was keen that we didn't just recycle old locomotives with the route. So 25s of that era were commonplace around Bishop Auckland and the northeast, and of course the brake tender as well. So not only did I want to bring the rolling stock that I modelled, but I was keen that there was a route with a new bit of traction that people could drive. So it wasn't just looking like we were farming, stock that we'd already made.
Yeah.
And again, we put Mark 1s in there, and there's a couple of new freight wagons as well. But the 25 is a nice little addition, I think.
Okay, so that's the tractive effort. I think the next thing we wanted to have a look at was you've got some comparison shots here, which are really interesting.
Yeah, so there are a number of big stations and little stations along the route. Now, this is Pierce Bridge between Darlington and Barnard Castle. And I picked this one because it's one of the first examples I made as so what is the standard? What do I want my route to look like? I know I've discussed this on my blog, and we've chatted about it too. It's not so much a photograph. It's more of a painting than a photograph. So if you click to the next image, I was keen that I kept the feel of the station, but I wanted to put my own twist on it. If I didn't like something in the route, if there was a post in the way, or if there was something I didn't quite like, then I would remove it because I felt it spoilt the piece of artwork that we were playing, because you don't drive photographs, you don't interact with photographs. You can look at them, but this you move around, you drive through it. So I wanted the landscape to be how I wanted it to look like. Okay. So here we are, way ahead. Again, this was quite a nice little scene to put together. It looks obviously nothing like that now, but the house, I think, the station is a house now. Completely overgrown, but you can see that I've kept the flavour of this in the routes. If you click on the next one, just to see that you can see up to the Dales. All of this is in sunshine now. It was not often like that. It missed most of the time. But you can see that it's very much like the photograph, and there are something like 37, 38 stations along the route.
That's a lot of stations. So I think the last comparison then is Darlington.
Yes, Darlington, which unfortunately for all my sins, I made the first one for Cujo Rail Simulator, which we had something like 5 days to knock it together, which I wasn't particularly happy with. But we didn't have Google Earth. We didn't have the things we kind of take for granted now when we're putting these stations together. Now, I can't even take credit for Darlington. There's a guy who sits next to me, Chris Lillington, who put this and Durham together. Well, he did a fantastic job, and I kind of feel sorry for him. He had to listen to me. No, that's not quite right. Do this, do that. Shut up. So it is a really nice station. He did a really good job on this, and because the track layout all got redone by Robert, the station is now correct in the right shape and the right length, whereas initially it wasn't quite as it should have been.
Okay. So, I think we're in the last section now, so I think this is just a few screenshots from around the route.
Yeah, this kind of just gives you a flavour of where it's at right now. So this is Darlington looking from the south, and I've got Kevin, a guy in one of my teams, who keeps telling me to change the green to the blue, so that will probably happen. He won't leave me alone until he's done that. But yeah, Darlington is a very, very impressive station. I think if we want to extend this, like as I said, if we can extend it to Middlesbrough, Saltburn, or take it down to Richmond, this is a really good, strong place to start a new route from. North Road is a place where we used to get off as children because it was closest to the cinema at the time. But again, it's a museum now, and I think that's where Locomotion Number 1 is housed there. Shildon Station, which is it's a bit depressing kind of place, but this is where the museum now. So the museum is just beyond where that bridge is there, and the station is pretty much that same layout. But you can see the tracks going off to the right, which would have went to the Shildon Works and where the Mason crossings are. But it wasn't a piece of track that we put in. Stanham Station is still there, still pretty much looks like that.
I think we saw a photograph of it earlier, didn't we?
We did, yes, that's right. And it's a really there's a Weardale project. I think have ploughed a lot of money into that, so it's well kept, really nice. And this is Durham. This is again the Durham Old Station. So if you were at Durham now, you wouldn't see. It looks very different to this, but very nice shot. Shame I didn't take a screenshot of the other angle where you can see the cathedral. But a very nice station again, modelled by Chris. Did a really good job on that. And here we are at Bishop Auckland. This is the whole reason why I made the route. Now, one of the reasons why I wanted to make that station was, I'm into my oil paintings, and I love recreating the scenes from the old town. But there are only a few photographs. Well, there seem to be only a few photographs of late. There seems to be a lot more photographs coming out of the woodwork. Lots of Facebook pages of Bishop Auckland and the history of the station, where I'm finding that actually there are more people sharing their photographs than ever before. But as an artist, I want to be able to take my camera, and it's a shame you can't walk first person around this, but I've modelled it so that you can walk through the building, you can walk through the approach. So now if I wanted to paint a painting, I can move the camera around and find the perfect shot for me, pause whatever trains I wish in the scene, and then I can kind of live out.
It's a real time machine, isn't it?
It is, and I think that's it. What does Railworks or Train Simulator mean to me is it is a form of time travel. It is. I very rarely think of, I wish I could drive that train as it is right now. What people generally say is, I would have loved to have seen it in its heyday. I would have loved to have, and this allows you to do that. This allows you to actually drive as you wouldn't be able to have this experience anywhere else. Mm-hmm. And I think that the guys who have worked on this, people say it's my route, it started off as my route, but it's not my route. There's been a lot of talented people putting in a lot of hard work on this route over these last 2 or 3 months, and there's a guy, Stuart, who laid a lot of the content for this for the best part of 9 months alone in his home, and he did an amazing job. And then we had to get the signals working. We had to put a lot of work into getting the semaphores working, and there's a guy, Dan, who pulled the project together and told me to stop worrying about building. There's a building in that image there that I haven't finished yet. Do we need it? And most of the time it's, yes, we need it, but he often would rein me in, and he's the one person, like, if it wasn't for him, I don't think this route would have got finished, because I still would have been worrying about buildings a mile, 2 mile away from the track.
It's always the danger with a project that you're passionate about, isn't it?
I never knew where to stop, and that's why, and until Dovetail helped me finish it, it would never have got finished, because 1 or 2 hours every evening, you just can't complete it. It takes, I don't know, maybe 26 to 30 man months to create a route, and of this length, and the math doesn't add up, does it? It's especially when you're creating all the assets. You can lay the content if it's available, but if you're making the assets and you're laying the content, it's too big for one person. And and yes, I was the driving force of this route, but there's a team behind the scenes.
Absolutely. Okay, so that's the an overview of the route. Thanks, Derek. So let's have a quick look. Just a reminder of the locos that are in the pack. So there's the Class 25. The 08 for the shunting, the Class 37, it's one of my favourites, I have to say, and the Class 101 for your passenger services, and of course there are Mark 1 coaches for your loco hauled stock as well, and a fair section of freight in there as well, isn't there?
Yes, there's a wall flat I think we snuck in there, but yes, there's a good selection of there's a couple of new brake vans, obviously the brake tender that we mentioned. And then we tried to put period stock in there. It's a shame we didn't get the PCAs in, but it was just too late. But you've got press flows and you've got a lot of mixed freight mostly, and of course coal. Coal and minerals was the main freight of the route.